Hello, I'd like to welcome today Jennifer Jenkins, who is a children's author and founder of Operation Literacy. Has been willing to take time to meet with us today, and we're excited to talk. Um,
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Jennifer, why don't we start off? You just tell us a little bit about yourself and Operation Literacy, its mission, and what inspired you to launch it.
Yeah, so for me personally, I am a children's book author. I write young adult fantasy and have been publishing since 2015. But the thing that's interesting about Operation Literacy, it started with just a group of friends that it was my writers group, and we wanted to give back to the community in a meaningful way. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. There are a lot of great big hearts out there that want to do good and to use their talents to benefit others in a philanthropic way. But we ended up forming this pitching a writers conference for teens to UVU, and for some reason they thought it was a great idea and that we were the right people to do it. I still kind of laugh at that because at the time, this was back in 2009, we had no one in my writers group at that time had been published. Like, we had no credentials. We had no experience in conference running or anything like that. We just had an idea, and it ended up going really well. We had like 130 kids that attended the first teen author boot camp, and
Wow.
it evolved over the years until we started hosting some of the biggest authors in the country, and we were also hosting close to 1,000 teens every year. And so it became the biggest writers conference of its kind in the country, which is pretty remarkable. And it speaks to our beautiful community. I just know that this wouldn't have been possible if it weren't for a concentration of incredible published authors in the state of Utah who were local, who were generous with their time and donated their time to come and support these teens. And so Operation Literacy started with that conference. It's since expanded to being a national organization dedicated to promoting children's literacy in several different facets. In fact, this morning I was on a call with an organization that wants to donate books to rural schools in Utah, and can I coordinate the building of this library on a Paiute reservation? Like, it's turned into a lot bigger thing than just an annual conference for teens. So in keeping with our mission, Jennifer Nielsen joined our team and pioneered. She and I worked hand in hand with the Book Drop program, which is a program that brings authors to Title I schools and donates a free book signed by the author to every child at the school. Ken, you're an author and you understand the school visit world is really interesting. It's something where my publisher would send me on a book tour, and I would go to two different types of schools. I would go to schools, I was booked at schools who could pay my speaking honorarium or who could meet a minimum book purchase order. It's publishing's a business, and they needed to justify, sending me and paying for my travel and all of those things. And it's totally fine and understandable. Authors should be able to charge for their time, and that's not the problem. But what is the problem? As I was going on these visits, it's very clear that you're going to affluent schools. You're going to schools that have a hefty PTA fund, which is where a lot of speaking honorariums come from. Those PTAs fund those, and obviously that comes from parents. Or kids had to make those purchases themselves. And so what ends up happening is the vast majority of Title I schools in our country do not have author visits. They don't have authors come to their school for that reason. And so Book Drop was Jennifer Nielsen and my answer to that. We felt like we could hustle and get the funding in place to provide these resources to kids, so that these kids could see themselves cast themselves in the role of a creator or somebody who could accomplish something that maybe was extraordinary. And because seeing is believing in a lot of ways. And so this has been an amazing program. But so, our last thing, and I feel like I'm being really long-winded, but it's a big organization. The last thing is we've kind of morphed our big teen and tween conferences. We do conferences for educators. It's all being funneled into one weekend at the Salt Palace in Salt Lake City in February, called StoryCon. And if anybody has a desire to learn more about that massive event, it's storycon.org. And that is a huge conference convention that's being hosted by Operation Literacy. So yeah, that's it. I work as the CEO, and I work 40 hours a week, and then I try and fit the writing in the crevices. So that's my life right now.
That's a lot. And I want to cycle back and ask you a little bit more detail about some of these. Tell me a little bit more about how Book Drop works for those who aren't familiar with it, and what is your vision for it?
Right. So Book Drop for School is instigated in a few different ways. It either is I'm constantly writing grants and seeking funding. And sometimes it works that I get some funding, and then it's the discretion of the nonprofit to look at we keep close statistics. We watch statistics on free lunch qualifying schools, like what percentage of the student population qualifies for free lunch. English learner populations, we look at that. We look at state test scores and how those scores are trending where literacy is concerned. And so we have a pulse on a lot of the metrics of Utah schools specifically. If we get funding, I have a top 20 list that I'm always like, okay, these are the schools that I want to do work with this school year. So if we get funding that isn't restricted to a specific school, then we make those decisions. We contact, if it's an elementary school, we bring in 2 authors to that school. So one that is a picture book author that can support K through 2nd grade, and then one a middle grade author that can come and speak to 3rd through 6th or 5th, depending on the type of school it is. We bring in 2 authors. We coordinate a date with the school and with the author. Then we send book plates out to the authors. So we have a branded Book Drop book plate that goes out to the author. They sign all of the book plates for the school, and then we drop ship books to the school. Their office aides insert those book plates so that by the time, and then the kids don't know that they get the book drop. They don't know that they actually get the book of their own. And Ken, the thing that's crazy to me is that 61% of homes right now, with homes that are at or below the poverty level, don't own a single age-appropriate book. They don't have one in their home. And so these kids, they have the opportunity to go and use their school libraries. And we know what's going on in school libraries right now. They're underfunded. They're being defunded in some cases. It's ridiculous, but it's really magical when a kid can own a book, and it can be theirs, and they can have their name in it, and it's something that they get to own. Anyway, so all of that to say, the author comes to the event. The author gets the honor of telling the kids that all of them get this book for free at the event, which is the best. It's like Santa Claus. It's so great. And the kids break out. And I can't tell you how many videos, like if you're ever sad, let me send you a reel of kids screaming because they get a free book. It's just will make your heart warm. But anyway, so they get a free book, and then we do due diligence reporting with the funder and basically show them videos of and pictures of the event, and hopefully they give us money the next year so that we can go and do the same good in another school. But that's typically how most drops occur. Sometimes we get a donor that's just like, I really want to benefit. A law firm wants to do some work in their local area to benefit their community, or a bank. They'll come to us, or sometimes we will go to them and say, hey, there's a big need here. Would you be interested in sponsoring a book drop? And so if we have a school in mind, we'll go to I have that top 10, that top 20 list. I'm going to find a way to do those book drops, this year. And whether that's grant money, whether that's pounding pavement and saying, hey, you have a mission that supports giving back to your community in these ways. Let us help you do that. And so there's lots of different angles. Some people have a specific school in mind, which is okay. Sometimes schools will come to us and say, we want a book drop. We have foundation money that we can donate toward this. Could you do a match grant with us? Or, we can pay for all of it or whatever. So we're pretty non-discriminate in the way that actually gets done. This morning, I had a call with somebody that wants to, in their office, they want to do a book drive. And how could that be used to the greatest impact? And so I'm working with rural schools to see who needs a library boost, and then talking to the librarian and saying, hey, what specifically are you looking for so that I can give this company information on these are the types of books. And so that's not a true book drop, but it works under the same umbrella of the program, just kind of as a different arm, and a way to, get books in the hands of kids that really need them.
How do you decide what authors participate in the book drop?
A lot of it is pretty practical. There's a couple factors. I'm going to use Guadalupe School in West Valley as an example. Guadalupe School is 98% Hispanic. These kids, a huge population of that do not speak English. And so sometimes we work with partners to get Spanish translation books. I know we did a huge book drop at Orem Junior High with Christopher Paolini, where we asked them specifically, how many refugee kids, how many non-English speakers do you have? And we were able to ordered like 1,000 books for them of Christopher Paolini's Aragon, but 200 of those were Spanish versions. And so it was really cool because the kids were like, woohoo. And then they found out, oh my goodness, I'm getting this in Spanish and I can actually read it. And it was awesome. So to answer your question, sometimes it's demographic driven. With Guadalupe School, we felt it was really important to have somebody come in who could provide a bilingual presentation. And so we flew in Newbery Award winner Matt De La Pena for that school. And he promptly ripped up my paltry travel reimbursement check and said, no way, I'm taking your money for this. But so I can't even say we flew him in. He flew himself in to come and give the most beautiful, heart-wrenching, like I'm going to cry, bilingual presentation to these kids. Dang it, Ken, I am not good at not crying when we talk about book drop. Sometimes it's a little bit more practical than that. Like we have X amount of dollars, so if we have $3,000 and we want to serve a full school, for example, it's really hard if we can't get books for under $5 a copy. And so we never do hardback, we never do new release, anything that we have to be able to source the book at a pretty deep discount. And sometimes that means cultivating relationships with publishers. We've had authors come out of the woodwork saying, hey, I want to be involved in this. I know you can't get my book for the cost that you need to. Let me do some work on this. Let me talk to my publisher and see if they will give you an at cost for this. And the publishers have been very generous. They don't always give us everything that we ask for, but they do a pretty good job. They get it. They see the vision and the mission, and they're motivated to help. So yeah. So if we can't get the author's book, like we've invited some authors based on, oh my goodness, we can get their book, this backlist title. I know Kristen Crow, we were able to get one of her backlist picture books for like $3 a copy. And we're like, Kristen, will you come and do book drops because of that connection? So it's not a popularity contest. It's a very pragmatic driven. What is the cost? And then who is the audience? We want to make sure that we're providing mirrors for these kids. You know what I mean? We want them to be able to see themselves in the presenter if there is a huge demographic that is focused there. So for example, we did work at Whitehorse High School on the Navajo reservation. And with this specific drop, we contacted Brian Young, who is a New York author who is Navajo, and he came in and did the most incredible visit for these high school students. And so that was really cool. We were able to give the high school students a copy of his book and giving representation to the culture and kind of, again, inspiring. It's so inspiring when, oh, this person's grew up like I did, and they had the same life story, similar or adjacent life story. It's really inspiring for these kids. Anyway, I'm done crying, so maybe a new question.
So if a sponsor wants to get involved, how do they contact you? Do they just go to the website Operation Literacy, or is there a better way for them to?
A lot of people just email me directly. We do have a form on our website. If somebody goes to operationliteracy.org, they can go and find in the footer, they can see all of our different programs and select book drop, and they'll see all the information that they need about, like, if you're a school, there's a form for you. If you're an author, there's a form for you. And if you're a sponsor, there's a form for you. So all of that gets back to me. I have a big team that runs StoryCon and runs all sorts of stuff. We have a staff of like 28 now that help with Operation Literacy. Jennifer Nielsen and I, with one assistant, run the entire book drop program. It is such a huge priority to us that's not something that we are farming away. So literally, I'm the best person to talk to with that, especially with a sponsor question or funding. I really like to try and work with the donor to understand their why, so that we can make sure that we're marrying those funds with to suit that why, and providing the biggest impact that we possibly can. And that's why, we probably have a little bit of an edge over other programs that give books. There's a lot of great programs that give away books, but the element of marrying the author visit, I think, is really, really important. Mm-hmm. And that was one thing, as we were in the workshop phase of this program, we felt really strongly that, we've been around, Operation Literacy has been around for 14 years now, almost 15 years. And one thing that, while we're not rich in monetary assets, we are rich in contacts and network. Putting on conferences for so many years, we've developed relationships with publishers, and authors. And so I think that we're uniquely situated to deliver in this way, to connect kids with these incredible storytellers. And then also the financial side of being a 501c3 and being able to accept those donations to provide tax benefits and things like that too. And impact reports that, other people from organizations that have to prove the efficacy of the dollars spent, I get it. That's something that we try to do really well too.
Now, you mentioned StoryCon, and mm-hmm. I don't know if that's new this coming year or if you've been doing that for a while, but I understand it's coming in February. Tell me a little bit about that. What should people expect from that, and what are you trying to accomplish?
So StoryCon is a facelift of Teen Author Bootcamp. It's like an evolution of Teen Author Bootcamp in place of our annual Teen Author Bootcamp conference, where in the past we've had about 1,000 teens come, and all of these industry professionals, best-selling authors come. We are expanding on that idea. So StoryCon will have a teen track that is Teen Author Bootcamp, essentially. So it will have all of the fun that we normally have at Teen Author Bootcamp, but it's spread out over 2 days instead of one. And the lineup is insane. It is insane. Neil Schusterman, Brandon Mull, Marissa Meyer, Danielle Clayton, Shannon Hale, Leywin Pham, Lainey Taylor, Jeff Kinney, that Diary of a Wimpy Kid. All of those guys are headliners, but then we have breakout presenters like Christopher Paolini and other huge keynote worthy authors that are filling in as masterclass teachers, as breakout presenters, and different things like that. It's insane. Right now, our presenter list total is almost 90 long. And it also includes partners like Hale Center Theater, Grassroots Shakespeare Company, TEDx Salt Lake City. There's so many different components of this weekend, and the teen track, which is formerly known as Teen Author Boot Camp. It's going to be hard to let that go because it's been our thing, our flagship for 14 years. The teen track is just one of 4 tracks that will be happening at StoryCon. So there's a general admission track just for the lay human that wants to come, for the parent that's been bugging me for years. I want to attend this with my team. That's for them. They with a general track ticket, they get access to all of the main stage keynotes. And then we have a tween track, which we've been running conferences for tweens for years too. Those have always been kind of more small and regional, depending on the area. We do them all over the state. The Tween Author Boot Camp track has, are you familiar with Margaret Peterson Haddock's?
Mhm.
Obviously, Jennifer Nielsen, the list that's supporting that track is pretty incredible too. Rena Barron, it's an incredible lineup. Frank Cole, and I'm missing Jamila Mendez is on that track. There's several. I mean, they're just amazing cast of authors, but that track is going to be a little more hands-on, a little more, it's a shorter conference. They're like little mini sections that they can register for. They're very inexpensive, but it's a great way for teens to go and workshop their stories. With each the teen and tween tracks, there's contests that go along with it. There's publishing opportunities. We have a publishing partner in Owl Hollow Press that has published a short story anthology for our teens for 7 years. And they put out a beautiful anthology every year with forwards from amazing authors that contribute to that. And then the last track, so general, teen, tween, the last track is our educator track. And I think that this is really, really going to be amazing opportunity for authors, but also just for kids in general, because these educators are coming to learn how to connect with children in creative writing. Educators that come can earn up to 5 SUU graduate credits, which is pretty cool. For step and lane changes in their professional careers. And they can bring school groups. So like a group of 10, if you bring 10 kids, then you get a free educator pass with every 10 kids. So in the past, we usually have dozens of school groups that come in. I would say north of 30 or 40 school groups. This year, we're on track. I think we'll have hundreds of school groups. And we have capacity for 1,200 teens, 1,200 tweens, 500 educators, and then 500 general admission tickets, all supported by a vendor hall, an exhibit hall that will be open and free to the general public. So even if you don't buy a ticket to come to one of our StoryCon tracks, you can come to the vendor hall, the exhibit hall for free, where all of our main signings are. You can go meet Jeff Kinney. You don't have to pay a dime. Just buy a book from Poppy Books, because they're our bookstore partner, and come and experience the fun on the vendor hall. We have Dragon Steel that will be there, and several other major vendors that are so much fun, that are about fandoms and storytelling, but also educationally driven. And we even have an artist alley I guess it's called Indie Alley, for authors that want to come who maybe aren't part of our programming as well. So it's gonna be a riot, Ken. It's gonna be a riot. And if you may need to
It sounds like
may need to scrape me off the pavement on Sunday morning of the 23rd, because it's but yeah.
No, I understand the cost, if I remember right, is fairly low. Do you have sponsors to help defray some of those costs?
So the why behind why StoryCon, why when we had Teen Author Bootcamp and it was this great program, the truth is For me personally, and I'm speaking for a lot of passionate people that work with our Operation Literacy organization, it kills us that we know that so many kids don't come to TABC or Teen Author Bootcamp because of the cost. We try to scholarship as many as we can, and we have a goal every year that 10% of our attendees will be scholarship there. That being said, the demographics are clearly, we're not reaching kids that really need this program. And so part of the why behind StoryCon is if we can have a vendor hall, if we can have some adult tickets and adults in the space to help increase revenue and pay for venue and other things, then we don't have to put the cost, of putting on a major event like that on the children. And so right now, Jeff Wheeler and Gina Wheeler have donated $10,000 in scholarship money so that kids, Title I schools and other individuals can apply to come to StoryCon for free. That's something that we're really, really passionate about. I am working with UDOT. I don't know if it's going to go down, but I'm working to try and get transportation for these kids to come to StoryCon for free. Working with the First Lady's office and banging on any door that will answer me. But just trying to do that legwork, because it's not enough to say, yeah, we have scholarships available, but we need to partner with Latinos in Action and other organizations, the Department of Multicultural Affairs and other organizations that really have a pulse on those communities and can help us connect these scholarships with the kids that really need them. So there's a huge effort that's going into that, and we have amazing sponsors like Poppy Books, like I mentioned. Dragon Steel is our exhibit hall title sponsor. In fact, Brandon Sanderson has a book coming out, a children's book coming out. I think it's called The Most Boring Book Ever. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
So they're hosting a quest on our exhibit floor called The Most Boring Quest Ever. And so they will be there, and they're a huge sponsor for us. There's a company called Operation Read, not to be confused with Operation Literacy, that is a company that's centered around helping children with dyslexia read. And they're a major sponsor for this. And so we have several title sponsors going in. LitJoy is another big one. They are sponsoring all of like our green room and stuff for all of our presenters, and they're fantastic. And now I'm worried that I'm going to miss one. But I know that we're in talks with several other amazing organizations too. And we need it, frankly, because the Salt Palace is not cheap. And what we're trying to do for these kids, there is a huge cost attached to it. And if we can find a way to take the burden of those registration fees off of these children, then we're about it. That's what we're about.
I don't want to make you cry again.
Don't do it. Like a game. Let's make Jen cry again. It's an easy game. Find something that's more challenging, Ken.
So this question, I've just been debating whether to ask you or not. But if you decide, nope, not going to go there. But is there a special experience you've had with teenage boot camp or book drop that just, really is special to you that you would like to share?
I need to send you a video, because this video will just explain it all, and I'll do that after. And if you want to add it as a link in your little notes, you can do that. But there's a boy, his name's Oswald. And how great is that name? First of all, let's just start there. Mm-hmm. We run a first chapter contest for teens, and it's a national contest. So we get entries from all over the place for it. But the winner of last year's first chapter contest was a kid named Oswald. I think he was 16 at the time. And he won our senior division, and he came up to the stage, and you could just tell, like, this kid was not somebody, and not to typecast anyone, but you could tell, well, based on his interview, he's just like, it meant the world to him. And some of the things that he said in like after the interview, we pulled him aside and we're just like, tell us about this. Like, how do you feel? You know, and he said, it's amazing. Oh, dang it, you did it. It's just he felt so empowered that he could do something with his talents. And um I think that's the really cool thing about our youth programs is, you know, there's so many organizations and structures that support an athlete and support a dancer and those types of activities, but very few that a child can go into a creative setting and say, I'm accomplished in this. It's powerful. I remember, okay, let me just take a breath and get my voice back because that's frustrating. I remember when I was young, I had a teacher. I wasn't a very strong reader. And I had a teacher who I remember I was describing a police officer walking across the street in this creative writing assignment that I was given. And I used the word waddled. And I'm talking fourth grade. The fact that I remember this is just crazy, but I remember it because this teacher circled that word and said, "You are a good writer." And I just remember believing her. So the idea that we could validate thousands and you know, over the course of 14 years, you have to, I mean, you can do the math. There's been thousands of kids that have come through our program, and I get emails. And so a lot of people just are like, how could you do this? You know, this is so time intensive and you don't get paid and all of these things. And anyway, it's hard to put a price on it. Special.
Well, we're running short on time. I'm just going to ask you one last question, and you can make it as short as you like.
Okay.
But you are an author.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your books.
So my first series was my debut series was a kind of a warring clans or I call it sci-fi wow YA fantasy that's called Nameless, and it's based on a girl named Zoe who infiltrates an enemy clan as a spy and ends up falling in love with an enemy soldier. And that is a trilogy. And then I have another trilogy that is more mystic, Mediterranean fantasy with witchcraft and pirates and all sorts of stuff. And the first book in that Lingering Seas trilogy is called To Kill a Curse. And then I also have a standalone fantasy that's called A Necessary Madness. And then I do have one nonfiction. It's called The Teen Writer's Guide, Your Roadmap to Writing. And having heard all of this, you can see why I wrote that book. And it was a fun kind of autobiographical, exploratory workbook for teens that are interested in writing. And it's something that I wrote patterned after I've moved 18 times before I turned 16 as a child. I was a military brat and my parents liked to flip houses. So it was like a terrible combination. So I moved all the time, and I have a lot of memories from the backseat of a car. And so I relate those memories, and I created vignettes to model different forms of writing, like dialogue, characterization, plot structure, tension, different things like that. And so each chapter kind of tells a story from my childhood and also teaches a principle about writing with some applications that they can use directly in their own stories. So yeah, that's my writing right now.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I really appreciate you taking time and sharing with me and with those who are watching these wonderful things that you're doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And please never make me cry again. This was probably my most emotional interview I've ever done. So
Sorry.
you have a gift or maybe it's a curse. I don't know. Curse for me.
Sorry about that. But thank you again.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.